Welcome to the New England Real Estate Journal Corporate Roundtable. This is our multifamily and property management outlook for 2022. I'd like to thank our sponsors for today, U.S. Pavement Services, Inc., Inspired Technology, Northmark, all three of our annual sponsors, and also Evolution Energy Partners and Timberline Construction. This is me, Rick Kaplan. I am the radio host for the New England and New York radio podcast. Anyone that is interested in being a guest on that, they can contact me and we can send you the application. Here is our panel. We have Scott Wolf, CEO of Briggs. He is a member, he's a Kane chapter partner. And Melissa Fish Crane, Principal and COO of Peabody Properties, Hiram Boston President. We have Jennifer Murphy, Director of Marketing at Chestnut Hill Realty and current MAA President. And Peter Lewis, Executive Vice President of Shockett Companies. And he is MAA's President-elect. And here is a message from Timberline Construction.
When people in the marketplace hear of Timberline, I really want them to think best in class. There are plenty of average people in the marketplace and in the entire world, in any industry you're in. We want to be exceptional. We want people to think if you want it done right, done well, you call Timberline first. That's something I will take the most pride in, is that we have that distinction as being one of the best construction managers that any client can hire to help them achieve their goals.
And now the fun can begin. Our panel we have this set up. It's a corporate roundtable, so the questions will be presented to the speakers, and then the speakers can answer one at a time. And this, have to remind people, this is being recorded. So if you do say something, we can edit it out. It's also, will run on our YouTube channel, also on the New England Real Estate Journal website and the New York Real Estate Journal website. So let's begin. Again, let me introduce our speakers. We have Scott Wolf, CEO of Briggs and Community Association Institute of New England, chapter partner. In this industry, everyone uses acronyms, so I like to explain what that actually was, so, in case someone didn't know. And next is Melissa Fish Crane. She's the president and COO of Peabody Properties. And some people know this is Hiram Boston chapter, but it's the Institute of Real Estate Management, Boston chapter. And then Jennifer Murphy, Director of Marketing at Chestnut Hill Realty, and she is the MAA president, and that's Massachusetts Apartment Associations. And Peter Lewis, Executive Vice President of Shockett Companies and MAA's President-elect. And again, that's Massachusetts Apartment Association. So let's begin our discussion. And the first thing, and right before this all began, Scott and Peter, we were talking about this, but the workforce shortages, is hiring and retaining the existing employees been a challenge? It has in a lot of industries. How bad has it been for multifamily and property management? Let's start with Peter.
Yeah, so put it this way. When the unemployment rate hit, I think it was like around 3% in March of 2020. It was tight. And even with the unemployment rate up, it's now I'm going to say hovering somewhere, I think close to 4 or 5%. It's still very difficult to find people to fill jobs. We have roughly about 160 employees. I probably have about 10% open positions. And just whether, property managers to maintenance technicians, admin, it's been very difficult, like I say, to get people to come out and come to work. Even though, during this whole crisis, we never even shut down. We were fortunate enough to keep all employees working at their locations for offices and maintenance staff. But it has been difficult, like I say, in the recruiting aspect of just trying to find people to fill these positions. I mean, you're trying to forge different relationships with different organizations, whether it be trade schools and whatnot, and just trying to figure out different creative ways to do the outreach. But it has been a struggle. The struggle is real.
Okay, thank you, Peter. Scott, what's your?
I'm going to mirror a lot of what Peter said. It is a struggle. Finding people is definitely difficult in all levels. It's accounting, it's maintenance, it's property managers. And I'm going to use the acronym CAI New England because it's easier, Community Association Management. We've always had a hard time finding property managers in the sense that it's a different type of management. In community associations, you're dealing with a board of trustees. The manager has 3, 5, or 7 individual bosses that they need to meet with. They're in night meetings because these are volunteer board members that only want to meet late at night, 7 o'clock. They don't want to do it during business hours. So finding people that want to be a property manager was always a struggle, and it did not get easier with the current environment. The one thing, the difference I think for us was we went remote a week before it was actually announced by the governor. We had a protocol in place for snow. If people couldn't get to work because of a snowstorm, we could all go remote. We basically put that into effect for COVID. We have not gone back. We are, for the most part, still remote. And I think that actually has helped us. We've been able to hire people, new property managers, based on the fact that they want to have the ability to work remotely. CAI, the bigger organization, puts out a bunch of statistics each year, looking at the job market and what's most beneficial to a new employee. And originally, you used to think it's all about money. The new hires want money. They really don't anymore. They want a work-life balance. They want professional growth. They want, unfortunately, to work remotely, offering flexible hours. So we've really tried to develop and offer different benefits that are not just cash. I mean, you've got a market where, gee, I just got offered $20,000 more. I love working here. I want to be here. Great. You need to go because I can't afford to pay you that increase. It's not fitting. So I think that just having different educational programs that we utilize and rely heavily on CAI New England for, and really just working with and constantly marketing to find new people. It's been very difficult.
Jennifer, your thoughts on that?
Thank you. Yes, same here. Hiring is definitely a challenge. We've had to use sign-on bonuses for some of our skilled trade positions, and candidates will ghost us and take other offers. So our hiring managers must dedicate the time to move quickly. And as far as retention goes, we do a good job with retention. We do a lot to show our employees how much we care about them. We have a wide range of benefits and incentives to support the health and well-being of our employees and also their families. But our employee turnover rate is a couple percentage points higher than in past years. I think some of our managers have been feeling a little desperate at times over the last year, maybe giving opportunities to people who are less experienced. Our philosophy has always been to hire people with the right attitudes and then train them on the rest. We've also had some people choose to leave our industry. Some of this is likely due to stress. The pandemic brought about a whole new level of stress, and at times our residents ended up taking out their stress and frustrations on our people. So we lost a couple of people as a result, which has been very tough. So yes, overall, it's very, very challenging.
Melissa?
Thank you. I echo everybody's comments. I think for our organization, clearly there's been challenges with hiring. We have a talent acquisition manager. That's what she solely does, on top of having hiring managers within our organization. I think that the biggest struggle we've had is on the maintenance end, is because people will leave for, $2 or $3 more. And the reality of some of the properties that we manage, we have really tight budgets, similar to what Scott was saying. So, it's situations that we have to kind of assess on an as needed basis and where they're located. I think, fortunately for our company, we have over 600 employees, and we have right now probably about a 2% open rate. So we've been really, really fortunate with that. And that is really predicated on looking at things differently. And I think that one thing that we've really we're a family-run business, and it's not just words, it's how we act and how we treat our employees, on top of the little things, as Jennifer had talked about. It's about culture in this landscape right now. People have choices, and people, we were fighting against unemployment for a long time, but people do want that work-life balance. We clearly have had two of our executive team members decide this just isn't for them, because it's a lot of work. So again, we've had to relook at how we do things. We revisited all of our onboarding, and we revamped how we onboard our employees. And just the one thing, our company, we did give people the opportunity to work remotely in some capacities if they had childcare issues or they're taking care of family members. But the one thing that I have seen with other organizations that have been a little bit more flexible with that is there's a lot of tension within departments. So you have allowing one department to work more remotely, but then you're having other departments that really need to be with their peers and need to work together. People get bitter. And I think that that's something that we really need to take a look at. We're, being in the property management business, I mean, we're a service business. We primarily do affordable housing, so we have a lot of regulatory requirements, recertifications, and inspections that, we really need to have the support of our team members on the site staff, in addition in the corporate office. So, I think that we have tried to be flexible with looking at, that work from home, but at the same token, we've kind of tried to control it as well, so everybody feels like it's fair and equitable.
Now, let me just ask a question on incentives that you offer to employees, new employees or existing employees, and retention. Are there benefits like because you're all in the multifamily business, can they get discounts if they're employed by your company on an apartment? And that way they're working from home, and they can also get some of the jobs, so that live, work, and play type of thing is kind of mixed in there somewhat.
So yeah, you can do that on, again, but most of ours are on the affordable side, so you don't have a unit concession that you can give them. But on the market rate communities, yes, you can do that, and we do that.
We do too. We have mostly all market rate, and we offer up to 30% discount off of the rent for our employees. So they're encouraged and incentivized to live at our properties. So yes, it's a great perk.
Yeah,
So our company, we don't own all of our real estate. So it's really based on what the clients, thoughts with respect to that are. And the majority of our portfolio is affordable. So as Peter had stated, it's more challenging to do that. We do have service managers that live on site, which is a concessed unit, but that's something just to service, the clients that are living there as well.
We've got a similar thing. It's the condominiums are owned by the owners, so we don't have the ability to do something like that. And on our apartment side, which is more of a smaller boutique part of the company, they're all investment owners. They're not, we don't have the ability to make those deals. The one thing we've done is empowered our entire company. We've gone and told everybody, you know us best, you know our culture, you know who we are. For anybody you bring to us, you're going to get a bonus of X. And it's sizable. And frankly, at the beginning, I was talking to Rick and Peter, we've actually been fortunate. We've hired probably 6 new managers throughout COVID. Unfortunately, I've pretty much never met any of them in person. Talk to them all the time on Zoom, but it's in every one of those was a referral from an existing staff member. You know, in our turnover, I was smiling when Jennifer was saying it. Majority people, we've had the one person I referenced who got more money and stayed in the industry. Everybody else that has left my company during this time has left the industry. It is a thankless job on many levels. It's demanding. It's a lot of time. So we're not seeing people leaving because they don't like our company or the culture. It's, I got to get out of this industry. I need to do something different. And there's opportunity out there, so they're able to do so.
So what are some of the things that they don't like about the industry that's pushing them out?
People have become crazy.
It's not a 9-to-5 job.
No.
Property management is clearly not a 9-to-5 job. So you're on call 24/7. And I think for some people, you know, it goes back to, they want that work-life balance. They want to be able to have, you know, designated times when they go out with their family members and they're not interrupted. And that you can't promise that.
Right.
But then there's others that have been in this business for, you know, 30 years and on. So yes, Peter.
Exactly.
But it's in your blood. So
It's in your blood. I love that. It is in your blood. Not everybody's cut out for it. It can be chaotic at times, especially if you have construction going on at a current property with current residents, and it can be chaotic. And the residents can become unhappy when you're doing construction nearby. So it can be draining at times. So you're either built for it or you're not. So it takes a unique personality type for sure.
I mean, the one thing I want to add, Rick, is that, you know, the hospitality industry really got hit during COVID, and we really capitalized on that. So that would, and I'm sure others did as well. So, you know, if you have someone who has good customer service skills, back to what Jennifer had stated, they have the right attitude, good customer service skills, we can teach the rest. So I think that's something on the bright side, that there's some opportunity. I just think the one thing that people have to be very mindful of is that you're going to have to look at things differently. It's not same old anymore.
And everything is different every day in property management, as we know.
And the demands have just gone up. They have not gone down. People are now working from home. They're in their unit day after day, and they're noticing and seeing more, and they want it done that day.
The demands are higher than
Demands are
not
definitely
less.
higher.
But, you know, Peter's a perfect example. You can start at the bottom and you work your way up so you can travel around the whole world when you get to his position.
That's called Where's Waldo? Where's Peter?
Wait till you see the 2022 schedule, Rick.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Okay, well, Jennifer, you brought up a good point about the you know, the construction. Right now, there is a shortage of materials, or you know, the supply chains are suffering. So the material costs and the shortages for repairs, new builds, or just maintenance in general, has this been a real issue for you all?
Absolutely. Material shortages, along with the supply chain issues, it's been a big issue with new construction. And with the shortages have also come material price increases. And then on top of that, there's also a labor issue. And this isn't just about new construction, it extends to our existing units. There have been several occasions when we've needed to adjust from our spec and use a product that was available. It might cost more, and in some cases it might be even of lesser quality. And then the other concern has been that residents' frustration because of delays and repairs, along with having a product that is installed that might be different from what product they've had for years. For example, maybe we've replaced an appliance with a different appliance or a different color, black or white instead of stainless. It's been tough. And then this is an issue with almost everything. So, this month it might be about appliances or boilers and furnaces. And next month it might be about kitchen cabinets or doors or garbage disposal. So many of these products are taking a longer lead time, and there are so many back orders. So it's been very, very challenging for sure.
Melissa?
Sure. I mean, absolutely. To what Jennifer's point was, I mean, I think the one thing that we've really tried to do is work with our service department and really forecast what they're anticipating. We don't have as many new construction projects going on right now, but the ones that we do have, there definitely are challenges with that. But with just ongoing maintenance, kind of projecting what we anticipate, what have been the trends of garbage disposals? How many have we replaced? How many haven't we replaced? So just being a little bit more forward thinking and being organized. Where you could order something that it would come the next day. Instead, now it's taking 2 weeks. So making sure we have enough stock. One thing clearly we learned from COVID is just PPE. I mean, we are constantly making sure we have plenty of PPE because we never, obviously safety is number one. So it definitely has been a challenge, and it will be interesting to see what 2022 holds. I try to be optimistic, but it doesn't look great. And to Jennifer's point as well, is just price increases. When we have large capital projects that we had anticipated, but because of COVID, we had to defer them. Now our contractors are coming back to us and saying, the material costs have gone up 30%. And it's not something that we had anticipated for. So it's just kind of working through that as well. So it's a lot of sitting down and really thinking through and what makes the most sense.
Yeah. So you're saying you have a warehouse now?
No, we don't have a warehouse. No, because every property is individual. But when we have a property, 100 units, and we take a look at last year that we had to replace hypothetically 5 refrigerators, we make sure we have plenty of refrigerators on site. So it's just being more, mindful of what our inventory on our properties are for individual properties. Because again, our properties are individually owned. So.
Okay. Scott?
I mirror everything everybody said so far. It has been the biggest frustration. That probably goes back to the last question about staff retention. The frustration level, you just can't get things. And from a community association standpoint, things that used to take 2 days are now taking 2 months. We're just trying to constantly educate and follow up with the client, where you could get away with not, gee, the materials haven't arrived yet and wait because they'll be in 2 days. You need to follow up with that owner and let them know materials aren't here. They probably won't be in for 2 months. And you need to know that we're aware of it. We're following up on it and more. So it's a lot more communication and keeping people updated. Everybody knows it's a supply chain issue. Everybody knows it's a maintenance and contractor supply issue, but they tend to forget when it comes to their own property. The biggest thing that we're seeing from a community association standpoint is budgets are being blown all over the place. Every budget is a nightmare. Going into budgeting for 2022, we're carrying extra amounts just to be safe. We've been looking to hire maintenance people. I've had an ongoing ad for maintenance people for 1.5 years now. If I could find 10 of them, I would hire them tomorrow. You just can't. That is the area that I took the biggest hit, and I don't recall who said it earlier. I can get another $2 an hour, so I'm leaving. I can get another $10 an hour, I'm leaving. And it's how far do you chase that amount? Because our overhead and everything else comes into play. So you got to be a little bit more aware of it. The other issue is the larger contractors. We don't have anything to do with new construction. Our properties are built and people are moving in when we take them on. It's the delays in the contractors. It's those go-to people that I've worked with for 30 years that were partnership, and they're there for me every time I call. Now it's like, I'd love to, but I can't get there for another 3 months. So it is definitely an impact. And the best thing that we've found that we can do, which makes the manager's job a lot harder, and we're also redesigning their roles so we can have others assist, is keeping the client informed, keeping them updated. The biggest complaint that comes to my desk right now from clients is, well, we have a backlog of work orders. And my initial thought is, who doesn't? So it is definitely impacting us. I do not see it getting much better in 2022. Like Melissa, we are stocking for our apartment division. We now stock 5 to 10 refrigerators. We're stocking dishwashers, garbage disposals, things that we know we're going to use, but right now you just cannot get it readily available.
Peter?
And just mirroring the same thing, what used to be able to say get done in the normal course of 30 business days, you're looking now at 3 to 4 plus months. And one example I have is we were just trying to do some fogged glass replacement at a property. Ordered the glass, I think it was in early August, and did not get completely installed until November 1st. And so those kind of delays that is really what you're seeing on every single item that you're trying to purchase and repair on your building just to keep operations going. And as Scott just said, I don't see it correcting itself early on in 2022. I was hoping, 6 months ago that, we might come out of this by the first quarter of 2022. I think we're still in it, unfortunately, for another year.
Hopefully,
Well,
yeah.
yeah, hopefully. We're having some issues of people trying to get on, and they're having some difficulties. So a lot of people might be watching this on the video. I don't know what's going on with that.
One of my colleagues texted that the invite might be for 10 p.m. instead of 10 a.m.
Yeah. So I'm going to try to get them all a new link so that they can turn in, but they'll also be able to see this on the recording. Now
I just got a similar text message that it's 10 p.m.
Yeah, no, I got about 15 or 20 emails. So, well, I'll try to get them a new link so they can see the rest, but they'll all be able to see the whole thing in full on the recording. So, this is a great question, I think, for the times we're in right now, because we have a new mayor, Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston. And I know most of you probably have some properties that are tied into the city. But they're talking about rent control. And I'm kind of wondering how that's going to trickle down and affect how the workforce housing, low income housing, if they put that into place. And is it a wise thing to put into place? Because I lived during the rent control times, and that was a nightmare. So let's start with you, Scott.
Thanks. I'm going to play the easy card. We manage community associations and condominiums. So really it doesn't impact us because in that division, there is no impact. We deal with the owners, not the renters. The fear of something like that going into place from that position is you now have an investor that's relying upon their rent to pay their condominium fees and any assessments that come along, and that could have an impact on that industry. So CAI, myself, we're all really paying attention to what's going on with it. But from a condominium standpoint, it doesn't have a real impact except on our owners and how they'll address what's going on. That was the easiest way out for me.
Okay. How about you, Melissa?
The majority of our portfolio is affordable, but the biggest concern that I have is that our rents are predicated on what market rents are. So, it's a real concern. I mean, quite honestly, I think it could be a disaster. So I am concerned about that for our project-based Section 8 properties. On the market rate, I think it's the same thing. I mean, rents could significantly be decreased, and then you have to cut operating expenses. So it's definitely something that, we needs to be thoughtfully thought out. And I think that, I just don't know how, when you have properties, we have several properties in the city of Boston. It's a concern of mine.
So you could have a major issue with this.
Yes. Depending upon what this looks like. We'll see.
Jennifer, how about yourself?
Yes, it could be a major issue for us as well. So rent control laws, they exacerbate shortages. They represent an outdated concept that benefits the very few. And it doesn't benefit necessarily those with the greatest need. So while the intent of rent control is to assist the lower income populations, so many studies have shown that rent control fails to improve the availability and affordability of housing. So it seems like an easy fix, just cap what landlords can charge, but it is superficial. It's ultimately counterproductive. So the answer is housing at all levels to meet the population needs. It's a deterrent too from production. It eliminates institutions from lending. It drives up interest rates. It makes building in Boston unfeasible. Where Boston's been experiencing a building boom, we've created many new jobs, but under rent control, this would stop. Rent control wipes out job growth because housing is no longer being created. So it can't happen in Boston. It would be a disaster, as Melissa said.
Okay. How about you, Peter?
Yeah, so Jen and I were having this conversation last night, and it definitely would be crippling. Again, and I think you said early on, if you look at when the time that rent control was in effect versus after rent control went away and the production of units that have come into Boston. And again, the way to have a change in rents is you got to increase supply in order to meet the demand. But it definitely would, I think, dry up all that investment money that is floating out there, would scare away investors, and really have an opposite effect of what they're trying to do. And just, it would be crippling to the industry as a whole. I don't think it's going to happen, but like I said, it would be crippling if it did. And because again, most of the stuff that we do is affordable. Melissa even said it. Our rents are driven on the market rent. So if you all of a sudden decide to say in the market, okay, we're saying Boston rents are now going to be limited to $2,000 for a one bedroom, you really are changing all of operating environments. Yeah, you may have made that one unit affordable, but you've turned the world upside down from an investment producing standpoint. As well as just trying to maintain that asset too when it comes down to the long term. So like I say, it could really turn things upside down and not for the better.
Just to make it unanimous, I agree with everything everybody said. I think it's a horrible idea, and I really don't think it'll come to fruition. It does bubble up every so often. I mean, but I don't see the benefit to it. I just see what everybody else voiced being a problem.
I think put it simply, I mean, the math just doesn't add up. So, you have income coming in, you have expenses, and if it doesn't coincide, then you have a real problem. And I think that, all of us on this panel have, units in the city of Boston, and prices are going up, and, labor is going up. I mean, it kind of everything we're talking about, salaries are going up. So, you know, where is this money coming from?
So
So
let's lower the rent. Everything's increasing, so let's lower the rent. I mean,
Yeah.
it makes perfect sense to me.
right.
Well, the thing was years ago, what people would move into a low, finally get into that rent control apartment, and they would never leave.
Right,
Right.
30 years.
They wouldn't
30
want to give
years.
it up.
Right.
I mean, the market, COVID adjusted the market. You know, that occurred and the market had an adjustment. The market does adjust on its own based on what's going on. To put a cap on it just doesn't make it realistic. It won't work with the cost. You couldn't
Yep.
run the building.
And then that person living in that rent controlled unit for 20 or 30 years, why would somebody want to invest in improvements and
Right.
new roof or updates, or why would you put money in when there's no return? It just doesn't make any sense.
Well, it doesn't also make any sense when you already have in place low income housing, and you have rent subsidies, and you have all these other programs that offer that help that if someone needs it, so I don't understand it myself.
Absolutely.
So let's move on to the how is the eviction moratorium that was in place during the pandemic, and fortunately I think now it's finally over in Massachusetts. How has that affected the rental property? Because I've heard a lot of nightmare stories. Let's
So I'm
start with,
happy. I'm happy
Yep.
to start.
Yeah.
It was a real challenge. Again, the majority of our properties are affordable, but the concern that we saw was that people just felt as though they didn't have to pay their rent, and the word got out they couldn't be evicted, and it's a pattern of behavior. So I know a lot of organizations and are really working on reducing the eviction percentage, which is great. And that obviously is the goal. None of us want to evict anybody, but people also have a responsibility. So that was something that we had seen. Thank God for all the rental relief that has been available. Our organization has gotten over $2.5 million of rental relief from the state. But it's unfortunate because I think that in some cases that, it was unnecessary. I think that, we needed the money because we obviously had to pay the bills, but I think it's just when people feel as though they don't have to pay rent and their rent is, $500, and they haven't lost their job, but they are somewhat impacted by COVID and they're just saying, well, they can't do anything. It's just unfortunate.
Jennifer?
Yes, I'll echo everything that Melissa just said. We have always chosen mediation above all else. We want to work with our residents. We want to keep them in their homes. I'm not sure that the eviction moratorium, we were mostly affected by the state moratorium as opposed to the CDC one. And while the moratorium gave protection to some residents who certainly needed it, it also allowed those who would seek to take advantage of it to be very brazen about it, that I'm not paying and there's nothing you can do about it attitude. And our struggle has been a greater reluctance by the court system to process any type of collection action, even if it's an attempt to bring the resident to the table just to discuss a resolution. Some systems were very good about implementing forced mediation, which helped to force that dialogue and maybe weed out those who are taking advantage of things. But overall, it's just been such a slow process. Then you have the issue of the courts perhaps struggling themselves with personnel, I assume, and the time it takes to hear a case. Just last week, we were talking to a regional property manager about where you could get into a summary process action within a month or so. Now it's taking months and months down the road. And even more of the egregious actions, 7-day actions, not related to collections, they won't be heard in a timely manner. but each housing court does operate a little bit differently. So yes, it's been quite a ride.
Now, I've heard stories of people that have had that moratorium that they've been part of, or the eviction program, that they haven't had to pay their rent. This program has ended. They've had a job for a year now since they've been on that they haven't paid rent. And now it's coming that they have to start paying rent again, and they just choose not to anymore. Is that a commonplace now?
More common than I would like it. Again,
Go ahead,
go ahead,
Peter.
Melissa.
No, I think the frustrating thing on my end, and Peter, I don't know if you're seeing this, but a lot of our properties are predicated on someone's income. So they have the ability to come in and adjust their income based on it being reduced. So we just had problems even getting people to come to the table, and we put a tremendous amount of effort into that. It's clearly gotten a lot better, but what we have seen, it's repetitive residents that are kind of going after this rental relief. Clearly, there are people that have been impacted by COVID. And in my mind, those are people that are deserving of these resources. But, others that are using this as an opportunity just not to pay is a real concern. And I'm going to go back to it's behavioral. If people feel as though, they haven't paid for 6 months, they're getting, a taste of that additional income, it's a challenge. Sorry, Peter.
No, that's okay. Again, I think you hit the nail on the head, which is, again, there's the emergency assistance has helped a lot of families. And I think Massachusetts has done a really good job of getting that program rolled out for the state. And so, again, that has been successful. But really what it comes down to is, and Melissa said this, is there's some people that bury their head in the sand that don't want to communicate, don't want to participate, and basically have said, you can't evict me and I'm not paying my rent. That's a difficult battle to fight because, again, with the court shut down, they're getting 6 months free rent. And if you have to pay your mortgage and you have all your expenses to pay, you have no income. And so really the ones that are going to come out of this not in a good way are the small mom and pops that have the 2 and 3 family property units that are no longer able to pay their mortgage. And now the forbearance on the mortgage is gone. And those people are really going to end up upside down because they've had someone in that apartment not paying for 6 to 8 months or even a year. And that's, they were not able to, I'll say, take advantage of some of the programs that we knew about because we're large players in the industry. But really, like I say, it's the small mom and pop that we're a long way from coming out of this. And I don't know, again, what we see on the other side, but we've still got, like I say, a long battle to go before we're coming out in the appropriate direction.
Scott?
Rentals is a very small part of what we do. From the condominium side, it really didn't impact us. We were preparing on both ends of the company for shortfalls. We really did not see an increase on the condominium side, and we couldn't, again, do the collections to the owners as well. But shockingly, the 14,000 units of management that we have, we really did not see much impact there. People still paid those fees. On the rental side, we worked really hard to communicate with the tenants and get ahead of it. But as Melissa said, they're career tenants that are going to take advantage. There are people that this is what they do pre-COVID, during COVID, it didn't matter. They're going to try to play the system. And fortunately, we did not have many of those. Everything we have is market rate. We had a lot of people just abandoned. You can't come after me. So they left. We would work with the tenants. We kind of knew who was in the service industry, who worked for a restaurant. The bigger impact for us was we have several restaurants that are anchor tenants for a smaller landlord, and that is the mortgage payment. So without them paying, it was difficult, but they were able to get assistance. We worked with them. So we were very fortunate, but there are still people taking advantage of the situation. And and the courts being shut down is just been the disaster. The only upside is they're doing hearings by Zoom, which actually makes it a little bit easier. But for our company, at least, condominium side, we really didn't have a lot of impact. And on the rental side, we just really kept working with tenants. The phone call that was always fun for the head of that farm was, yeah, so-and-so just called. They found out that the unit that's identical to theirs in the same building right next door is $1,000 less a month now. They want a rent reduction. I want to keep them as a tenant. Automatically, they're getting that rent reduction because you want to keep them. So there was a lot of movement. We did see more vacancies over the last year and a half than we've seen in a long time. We're typically pretty much 99 to 100% occupied. So it's been a tough year, but it's definitely, they were in the driver's seat. Our hands were tied on what we could do.
Well, you know, that brings up a question about these tenants that have, you know, they've taken advantage of this program. They trash apartments. They, you know, they do a lot of things that they make them what we would call a bad tenant. But then they go and move into another building. How do they get from one rental to another rental if they have that kind of you know, that MO? You know, is there restrictions that you can't go back to look at what they've done in the past?
Well, it's really.
I'll go first.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, we've always talked about, we'd love to put a blacklist together that we could publish for everybody, all the different landlords have. They don't have it. We screen the daylights out of our tenants before we read them the lease. We go through everything. Our addendum is obnoxiously long. We try to do our best to screen the clients, and we don't go to housing court because of, I think, our process. It's difficult when you do a lot of landlords call for references? Not particularly. And do they really check? If you're dealing with, on this call, you've got larger management company, the smaller people just want to put a tenant in a unit. You know, when we take on a new client, we tell them up front, we are not going to just fill your unit. We're going to make sure it's the right person. So if you are not happy with a vacancy for a month because we're not finding the right person, we're not the company to you. And that, I think, is, yeah, so tenants there's more options for tenants to jump because it's more about filling a unit than getting quality.
Same, unless there was a judgment or eviction. And even if there was a judgment or eviction, it doesn't always show up on their background check. So we also have quite an extensive background check search, but not everything is always picked up on that. So we look at criminal history, we look at credit, we look at employment records, but we don't always catch what happened at their previous residence because we do not do landlord references. I wish we had the time to do that and the manpower, but we do not do the landlord references. We've done away with that years ago.
We still do them, but we realize that the existing landlord that has the person living in their unit, they want them out. They're lying to me.
Yeah.
So I want the previous landlord. I don't want the present landlord.
Exactly, Scott.
Right, exactly.
Okay, well, it sounds like a pretty nasty part of the business. I don't want to go too deep into it. So let's talk about something more positive, attracting new and retaining the existing tenants. Have you found different ways that work for that issue? Are there incentive programs? Are there, like amenities that you would offer that are attracting these new tenants and keeping your old tenants? We'll start with Peter.
Yeah, so again, most of our properties are on the affordable, but on our market rate, like we've done increased storage capacity at a property so that tenants could have the extra storage. The laundry, the gym was I'll call it a hot item. Whether or not the person uses it, another question. But with COVID and having to put restrictions in place on the hours of the gym and how someone uses it, again, people still like having it. Whether or not they go use it is another thing. But it is something that people want. And the other thing that is a big one is freshly renovated units. You know, you gotta have, I'll call it the granite countertops and more high-end appliances and whatnot, that people are coming in that basically will sell the unit itself. And those are just a few, and the other one was parking.
Okay, Melissa?
Sure. So the majority of our properties are affordable, and we have a lot of senior developments. So we've done we've kind of utilized Zoom for a lot of our programming. So we do a lot of programming within our organization for the residents. We also, when COVID started to decline, we actually were doing in-person programming. So things like, coffee hours or blood pressure screenings. We actually have nursing on staff. So we have wellness nurses that will do different type of educational, programs for our residents. That's something that's been really popular. At Thanksgiving, we brought everybody a turkey, and, we worked with different catering companies and got that arranged for them. We also, when COVID was really robust, we created a CARES team. So we looked at our most vulnerable properties, and basically we had volunteer employees that called every single one of our residents to check in on a weekly basis. Some people said after 2 calls, they didn't want to call anymore. But I think it was the little things that really helped. On our market rate properties, similar to Peter, we don't have as many, but we really looked at the amenities and what people were looking for, and just really great customer service. I think that, a lot of times people have similar products, but where people don't recognize how important it is to get back to people, to do that work order within 24 hours. To be responsive to residents, to give them that a little bit of extra TLC. And for us, that's made a huge difference.
Scott?
From our perspective, I mean, it's funny, Peter raised the gyms and whether they use them or not. We actually had a condo association that turned their gym, converted it into an Amazon room. They got rid of all the equipment and made it a package room. And frankly, the residents were so happy for that. They could have cared less about the workout equipment. For our apartments, we kind of did a similar thing where we reached out. Ours are a lot of brownstones, smaller properties. So it's spread out throughout the city. We just stayed in communication. The one thing that we do have going for us is we do have a full maintenance staff in-house that services our apartments. It was getting there quickly, alerting the tenant of our COVID protocol, making sure that all the guys had their masks, the booties, the whole shebang, and just doing good quality customer service was definitely a high point. The renovations are more necessary. We're competing with brand new buildings, and we got the younger the residents get, the less they care about the crown molding and the detail and all that fun historic stuff. They want the high speed internet. They want the technology. They want the package room. So we're competing with that. So we're trying to make sure we've got the nice up-to-date things. We're turning them over and painting and making them beautiful. That's pretty much all we really can do with what we manage.
Thanks, Scott. Jennifer?
Yes, we too took advantage of our vacancies that we had in 2020 during the pandemic to do major unit improvements, including new kitchens and bathrooms. So we made the units much more desirable to rent, which is a key reason why we were able to fill up so quickly in 2021 and why we're so confident as we head into 2022. Our product is looking just great. We've also, to attract new residents, we've really been focusing on our website and our online presence. We know that prospective residents want everything at their fingertips, so that user-friendly experience is so important. So we've been doing things like virtual touring options, and we added AI software, and we've been drilling down even to unit-specific 3D floor plans and videos and photos and even Matterport tours. So we've been doing a lot to beef up our online presence. And we've also noticed that prospective residents are so much more qualified when they come in to see the apartments now. So our conversion ratios from showing to getting the lease has gone up actually by 12% since pre-pandemic. So that's impressive. And we also do a number of things for our residents to retain them. We hold a lot of resident events. So throughout the pandemic, you know, virtual paint nights and virtual trivia or bingo and online fitness and yoga classes and a number of other events for them to show them how much we care.
And Peter, you offer your tenants anything?
Actually, one of the things that I had missed early on was in actually a couple of our properties, we had put in property-wide Wi-Fi, which is a big issue for tenants now too. So,
Well, is that also a liability though for you?
what do you, as far as?
Well, as far as if you offering an open Wi-Fi network, is that something that anyone can go on and, you know?
No, they would still have to come in on an account and set up basically individual account, but it's there. I'll call it's property-wide broadband, but they still have an account to access that broadband.
Well, I mean, it's all interesting, you know, what you're trying to do to try to attract people and keep them. But we're coming to the close of this, and I apologize to all the people that could get on, and I will send this video out to them as soon as it gets downloaded, and I will send it to you as well. So if you want to share it with them, that would be great. But before we go, I'd like to hear everyone's last words and what they're thinking 2022 is going to look like. And we started with Peter. We'll finish with Peter. We'll start with Peter to finish.
How about COVID just go away, please? Let us get our lives back together. would be a real nice thing. But yeah, it's like I said, for 2022, again, just continue to navigate the waters and keep the employees safe, and again, trying to reach out to the customers and make sure that your tenants are happy. And just really, like I said, more of trying to just get back to business as usual or as normal, I would like it, is really the 2022 obstacle for us.
Thank you, Peter. Scott?
I don't think I have to say anything. Can I just go with what Peter said? I agree. It's COVID. It's getting back to some sort of normal cadence for everybody. I think that there have been positives for, at least on the community association side, where now my managers aren't out until 9:30, 10 o'clock at night meeting with people. You have Zoom meetings. So there has been some benefits. I think continuing to work on our staff, which frankly is more important to me than my clients, because without my staff, I don't have my clients, really working to make their jobs as easy as possible in an industry that's not always easy. We've upgraded our technology. We've done a lot, but I think there's a lot more that we can do to just keep people sane, So from my perspective, I would love to see COVID just go away. I don't see it happening anytime soon.
Jennifer?
I think we're all feeling pretty confident about 2022 from a rent growth and a vacancy standpoint. And it doesn't matter whether the property's in the suburbs or the urban core. But that being said, we will need to burn off some discounted rents and high concessions that were used in the city over the next year or so. So that could impact turnover to a certain degree.
Thank you, Jennifer. And last, the best for last is Melissa.
I think that, you know, to everybody's sentiments, I think the biggest thing that I really want to focus on is rebuilding the camaraderie that our company is always had. And, you know, going to Scott's point, I mean, clearly our clients are extraordinarily important, but if we don't have our employees, we have nothing. So, you know, one thing that we did at the beginning of COVID, because we had just planned on it, was doing an employee survey, or in the middle of COVID, excuse me, an employee survey. And one thing that was really interesting to us is where we really saw a reduction was in our senior management, because they were just exhausted. And they were compensating for people who are working underneath them. So it's just really building back that leadership and building back, as Peter said, getting back to whatever normal is going to look like. But building that camaraderie within our company is critical.
Well, I want to thank you all. A very interesting panel, lots of great information. You know, I know it's been a trying couple of years, and you know, hopefully we're coming out of we hope we'll see this ending soon. We got our fingers crossed. I want to apologize to everyone that didn't get to come on to the live event, but everyone will get a copy of this and they can watch it. They can get their popcorn and sit around the fireplace with the family and watch the whole thing if they like. So again, I want to thank everyone for watching, and I want to thank the panel. Have a great day.
All right. Thanks for hosting, Rick.
Thank you, Rick, very much. Have a good
Happy
day,
holidays,
everybody.
everybody.
Happy holiday
Happy
to you.
holidays.
Thank you.